Hi everyone, this is Kate from smallplanetstudio.com, and I am so excited to bring to you today the very first video reentry reality interview. And I'm even more excited to have you meet Pam Slim of EscapeFromCubicleNation.com. Pam is a fantastic teacher, trainer, coach, speaker, and author. Pam wrote the book Escape from Cubicle Nation, and she's working on her second book, which will be available at the very end of the year. You can find Pam at escapefromcubiclenation.com, or you can follow her on Facebook or Twitter. I hope you enjoy today's reentry reality interview. Well, Pam, I'm so excited to be talking with you today and to be doing a reentry reality interview with you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, let's start with where you went abroad and what you did there.
So I was first an exchange student to Switzerland for a year, to Neuchâtel, in the French-speaking part, my senior year of high school. So I attended a Swiss high school and basically was your typical exchange student of finishing out my senior year there. I lived with a family, a Swiss-German family, in the French-speaking part. And so that was my first experience abroad. So that was my senior year of high school. My sophomore year of college, I spent 6 months in Mexico in the state of Michoacan. 3 months in Morelia, which is a city in Michoacan, and 3 months in a small village between Mexico City and Morelia. And then my senior year of college, I lived in Bogota, Colombia for 6 months, working on a project that was more hands-on internship, working in a daycare center. My major was international service and development with a focus in non-formal education. So it was an education project where women from the area, they call them a barrio de invasión. It's like the city just naturally grows where people kind of show up and then they build the services out to them. But certainly it's, a hard life, economically challenged. And so they were training the women in from that area to be teachers and to set up daycare centers, because a lot of them were just leaving their kids out of necessity in their homes and to go into the city to work. And they had some really terrible things happen. A kid got burned by a pot of beans that spilled over, and some really seminal things. So that was my senior year of college. And then after that, I lived in Brazil for 5 months because I trained capoeira, the Afro-Brazilian martial art capoeira. So I went there specifically to study capoeira. So those were my significant times.
That's fantastic. You have a nice range of experiences. And I know that we both went to Europe in high school as high school exchange students, and you went with YFU?
Yes.
Youth for Understanding? Yep, that's the same program that I went with when I went to Germany. So when did the idea of reentry first get on your radar?
I didn't really have a name for it, I think, honestly. And I remember when I came back from Switzerland, my mom was so funny. I think I had 13 visitors from the summer between when I came back and when I went to college, because I had met so many people. I had a lot of Swiss friends that came and visited. And my mom would joke that, after a while she would answer the phone. If anybody had an accent, she wouldn't even need to ask. She'd just be like, Pam, the phone's for you. Because I had all these people that I had met. So I knew that I had had this profound experience, and I was really amazing and mind altering and completely changed the perspective of my whole life. But I didn't really know about the, language of reentry. I just knew I felt a little bit different. It was hard to explain the experience to people who hadn't been there. I didn't have a horrible time with reentry, but each time, that I came back from being abroad, I definitely felt, a little bit different and had that kind of strange reentry kinds of feelings coming up.
And, I'm trying to remember what YFU did for us when I came back. And I don't really remember. I think we had a 2-day workshop in Washington, D.C., and I think we talked a little bit about reentry. And I remember somebody saying, you just feel like you're in limbo between two different places. Do you remember if YFU had some sort of program or materials for you?
I do not think they did anything. I just got on the plane and I came home, and that was it. I don't remember any further communication. And I'm the kind of person where if they had meetups or meetings or things like that, I think I would have participated. But there was nothing.
I don't remember there being too much. And I think what we did was actually more related to the scholarship that I had. than YFU. But yeah, the one thing I remember was one of the assistants who had just gotten home maybe a year or two before me. And we said, what was it like going home? And she said, well, it's like being in limbo. And we said, how long have you been in limbo? And she said, oh, yeah, the whole time I've been home. And,
Fantastic.
we thought, well, that's great. What was your reentry experience like? Like, what surprised you? Did you find differences between when you came home the first time and when you came home from subsequent trips abroad and times living abroad?
Yeah, it was really different. I think for the first time, because I was so young, and it really did just open my mind to the entire world. Switzerland's a place that has visitors from everywhere. So I had friends from West Africa and South America and Israel and everywhere you can imagine. And so I remember just feeling like I was looking at my own town so differently when I came back. And the thing I noticed the most was how little exposure I had had to the rest of the world. And I also remember looking at members of my own community in a different way, people that, had come from different countries. I grew up in Marin County, California, which is a pretty lily white, affluent suburb of in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I just remember being struck of like all of a sudden looking at my own town really differently. And I remember examining my own beliefs and thoughts and just realizing that in many ways, I'm thinking about one student in particular, Patty, who was originally from Mexico that was in my school. I realized like I didn't even really have an understanding of what it was like to be from another country. And I just realized I completely missed what her whole experience must have been like in school. And so it's just really more the feeling, I think, of coming back and looking at the world in such a different way, realizing that I wanted to do so much more travel. And that's probably why I immediately jumped into going to a little school. It's called World College West. It doesn't actually exist anymore, but the focus was all in international studies. And there was a mandatory world study program to either Mexico or China. And I just remember I just was hungry for more information and experiences about the rest of the world. So that was really the first time. And it was fun. It was fun to be able to host people also that I had met during my exchange year and have them meet my family and all of that. So that was really enjoyable. I had the typical snobby, oh, all of you don't realize, you're so American focused, and, the snobby 17-year-old coming back with a work that my family and friends suffered through, that probably everybody does the first time. And, speaking French and feeling very, sophisticated. But I think in subsequent times, when I went to Mexico, that was my sophomore year, we went for 6 months and then we came back and we had a quarter in school. And I had been with people that were from my school. It was very small, only 100 students for the whole 4-year program. So we did a lot in discussing it and actually really made our curriculum so much more rich because I was studying international development and we had just been, in a country where we had observed projects and done independent study projects. I interviewed men in my village in Mexico and La Colonia Benito Juarez who had been migrant workers to the U.S. and did a whole project on that. And I also did an educational project of a little 6-year-old boy in my host family whose name was Hugo, who was just the cutest kid I've ever seen in my life. He was this tiny little kid that would like run up in the hills and get wood, and he was just such a cute kid. And I took photographs of him and I created an educational program to take around to schools to just give a different perspective about understanding immigration and like what were different options that Hugo had, like based on what his life actually was and showing things from a different perspective. And I remember I did an independent study class that semester at World College West with somebody. It felt so fancy, so multimedia, because we did a slideshow, we synced music to it, and I did an audio narration. It was probably like some old school tape way that we were recording the audio, but we synced it all up to create a presentation. And that got me really, really excited about really sharing that experience. So it was kind of different each time.
And it sounds like, what a great experience to be able to go abroad with a group of people and experience something with them and then come home and be able to continue that conversation. Most people don't have that opportunity. You go abroad, you meet people, you have a great experience, and then you go home and you're completely alone.
we had our entire school, everybody understood it because everybody went on world studies. So even if they went to different countries, everybody had that experience, including the faculty members,
Mm-hmm.
because the faculty members would rotate out. And it made a gigantic difference. It was a
Yeah.
very special experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's, being in international education, I love hearing that because a lot of programs just don't do that. The program ends and then you're on your own. And a lot of people really struggle with the whole reentry thing, because they go back to their school, they go back to their family. And I find a lot of people, I did this, the way you cope is you go abroad because that's where you feel the most comfortable. It's where you feel the most alive. And it can be so helpful to to have people around you to talk about it. So I'm so glad to hear that you had that experience. What do you know now about reentry that you wish you had known earlier?
I think what I know now is that it's actually very challenging for friends and family and loved ones to understand the experience. I think the first couple times I was so enthusiastic and wanting to share everything about the experience. And as I said, probably a little cocky in my worldview of, having lived somewhere else and feeling very worldly. And I have a wonderful family and they're very patient and listen to a lot of stories. But I think I understand now it's not really fair to put them in the role of being the ones that can help me debrief the experience. I want to share it with them. But as you were saying, it is more helpful to really process everything that was learned by people who had actually been there and had the experience. My best friend Desiree Attaway, who's been my best friend since college for 29 years, we went to Mexico together. So to this day, 28 years or so after having that experience, we still talk about our experience in Mexico. So having somebody like her that I can process it with was really important. And I think I realize now it's important to be sensitive to your family members who weren't there, that it can be tiresome to hear, stories over and over. I'm an extroverted thinker, so I love to share, to talk to people, to understand what I really think. But it's probably the best to be identifying people that have understood the experience, which is where you can really have the rich learning. I don't mean you don't share it with loved ones, but share it in smaller bites so that they don't get overwhelmed. And that's probably the biggest lesson, I think.
Yeah, like you give them the Twitter version or you give them, a few of the highlights and not, just burden them or, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because it's hard. It's hard for the family members. They're getting used to having you be back home. They've developed a life without you. And I remember that was hard for me to realize that, life didn't stop when I left. It went on without me. And they're getting used to having you come back home and they're trying to figure out what, navigate that relationship. Yeah. And that can be really tough on both sides. So that's a really good point. So the last question is kind of just a fun one. If reentry were a food, what would it be?
I think like a big salad, kind of like the salad that I like to make here when I'm at the office. Just in that, it does feel, it feels to me a lot in every situation, like when I was coming back home, everything was just like brighter, more vibrant. I understood texture better, than I did before. Kind of like when you look at a really beautiful salad that just has everything just, when you have a good mix of colors and flavors and everything, I feel like it just, the reentry experience was something that had me pay so much more attention to detail, had me pay so much more attention to people. I don't know if it's true in your own research and teaching work, but I am forever more fascinated about place, about where people come from. So I've learned to be respectful. It's the horrible, impolite way that you can look at somebody you don't know and say, well, where are you from? Maybe they were like born 3 generations ago. They're like, well, yeah, I'm from here. I'm from Stockton, California or something. But I'm just, because of having been other places and lived in different countries, I'm totally fascinated by where people come from, what kind of accent they have. I love to guess if I have a cab driver in New York or something. Sometimes I like to guess and try to see if I can find out based on their accent where it is that they come from. And all of this experience is like really tuning in and just being so much more interested in the subtleties and nuances and really the colorful life that we have, of just realizing there's so much more than our initial perspective.
Yeah, totally understand that. Now, I know that you're working on a new book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. My new book is called Body of Work, and it's basically a new way that we could be thinking about our careers in the new world of work. Personally, that all of my experiences that I've had living other places have definitely been parts of what I feel like has been an important part of my own body of work. I hope that I have contributed something. A lot of the relationships that I built there, or in certain cases, projects that I did when I was in other countries, I'm hoping had a positive impact for those that were there. But I know personally for me, they're also very important parts of my body of work. So my intention with the book is to provide just some inspiration and guidance for people. Things are so unstable now. You don't really have a traditional career path, or your business doesn't always, go in a straight line. So if there's a way that we can think of the purpose of our work being to create a body of work, then what are the skills that are necessary in order to do that? And we just really get excited about different projects and different contributions. Think about, what's the definition of success that really fits us personally. And so it's just been really fun working on this little bigger picture book than all the work that I've been doing at Escape from Cubicle Nation.
Yeah, it sounds like a really, really great natural follow-up to Escape from Cubicle Nation. And I think it's going to be a topic that really resonates with people in my field: international education, intercultural work, and global education. Because I think that's kind of how we feel about the different type of work, the different things we do in our careers over time, and how our careers naturally kind of change and flow. So I'm very much looking forward to reading it.
Well, I am so excited. I can't wait to share it, and I can't wait to finish it. This month, as I was telling you before we started the interview, all of the writing will be done.
And when will we be able to read it? Do you have a date?
It comes out December 31st is the publication date.
Okay. Yeah, so we will be able to start off 2014 with your amazing book.
That is the design.
Good. Well, I am very much looking forward to reading it. And thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your reentry reality.
Thanks for having me.